Melisandre is wrong about Stannis because Melisandre is wrong about everything. That is the tragedy of her. She is a failure figure. Melisandre has this intense faith, not only in R'hllor, the Red God, but also in herself, which leads her to making incorrect decisions, incorrect predictions that line up more with what she desperately wants to be real rather than what's actually in front of her. Now, because Melisandre is a true believer, she really does believe in the Lord of Light, she believes in R'hllor and all of that. She not only has her faith, but she wants to prove it to be real. She wants to be an important part. That's her whole deal, because she's a servant of the Lord of Light, and she is trying to figure out what he wants so that she can give it to him, because that is how faithful she is. But with that comes, a certain degree of hubris, a certain degree of pride, which is what puts her on the journey that ultimately leads her to Stannis. Because she, if I remember correctly, isn't sent like a lot of the other priests are. She goes to Dragonstone, where Stannis was the lord, of her own volition, because of the Azor Ahai prophecy, which says, Azor Ahai will be reborn among salt and stone. Dragonstone is a volcanic island in the middle of the ocean. So that's where she goes. Now, once she's there, because, she wants this to be the place, she wants to be right, she wants to be the one to help Azor Ahai be reborn, she comes to believe that it's Stannis. And not only does she come to believe that, but she starts searching for evidence for it, and sadly creates the narrative that he is in her head, and then spreads that to everyone. And what's fascinating is, at the end of the day, Melisandre is very similar to an extreme, a religious extremist, wherein she sees this religion as something that she kind of has to sell to the masses. And so while she believes, she's not above doing a little embellishment to try to get as many believers as she can, because that is the ultimate goal. The goal is to convert these people. The goal is to bring more people to the glory of the Lord of Light and all that. And if she has to do some things that are kind of dishonest to get everyone on board, she's going to do that because she thinks that serves the greater good. So in constructing this narrative around Stannis, that he is Azor Ahai and all this stuff, she gives him the pieces to make it look like he is. For example, she claims that she has Lightbringer, and then they set Lightbringer on fire, this the sword, when they're burning all of the statues of the Seven on Dragonstone, and then Stannis goes and he pulls the flaming sword out of the fire, and isn't it cool? And it glows, and it looks like it's rippling, and it's on fire and stuff, because it's Lightbringer, right? But wrong, because the thing that we learned about Melisandre is, while seemingly the Lord of Light does have legitimate, real magic that exists and that can be performed by his followers, there's magic plus things like glamours or tricks or powders that cause effects and tricks of the eye and all of that stuff, which she uses to great effect to help convert the masses. And so with Lightbringer, the sword that she has given Stannis, it's very clear that it's not the real Lightbringer. It's a sword meant to look like it's flaming and looking like Lightbringer, but ultimately it's not producing any heat. You can tell that this is a trick. And then later, in I think A Dance with Dragons, we get our one POV from Melisandre, and in it we straight up learn that she has this trunk. It's filled with powders and poisons and stuff like that, and she uses all of that for these little tricks to help convince people. And she's worried because she's starting to run out of a lot of them. She's like, oh, I need to refill things. But it's okay, because it's necessary. It's necessary to help people believe. And this is such a fascinating concept, because I a lot of these big religious culty leaders who are kind of exploiting the followers that they're trying to cultivate. That they make lots of justifications in their head. You think about those big evangelical what was it called? Televangelists. Thank you. I'm thinking myself. It's fine. But televangelists on TV, trying to crowdsource money. They are trying to help themselves, but at the same time, they have convinced themselves that in a way they are still helping these people because they're giving them faith. That is Melisandre. The ends justify the means, because she thinks that she is bringing more people in, and not only is she bringing more people in, but she is bringing more people in, and that is very important to her. She wants to be the center of this, and that drive, that single-minded focus on oh, I need to make this real is sad, because you can tell where it's born from. Melisandre was a slave before she was purchased by the Red Red Temple. So like slave, I believe her name was Melanie. She was purchased. She went through all the stages, all the slavery crap, and eventually rose to this position. And seemingly because, she had that extreme faith, she had that faith in the Lord of Light, which in turn kind of gave her own confidence. And so she needs this to be real. She wants this to be real. And she wants to feel like there was a reason for it all, that she is also important in the grand scheme of things. And that is what ultimately leads her in all these incorrect directions, the Stannises, the wall, and all of that. And why, at the end of the day, I don't fully trust when people want to point to her as like evidence for like John, Principal's Promise, all that, because like Melisandre's track record is not good. Seemingly the whole point of her character is that she's wrong over and over again, and I just don't think that that's great evidence. But anyway, please, if there's anything else you want me to talk about, please let me know in the comments. I mentioned in the last video that TikTok deleted all my saved comments, so I don't have anything to pull from. Please let me know. I will talk about the thing eventually. Okay, goodbye. Melisandre is known for her passion and devotion to the color red, for burning people alive, and for birthing shadow babies that go ahead and murder your siblings for you. Now, while we can all understand the love of the color red and burning people alive, what's the whole shadow baby thing about? Well, allow me to explain. Now, what you need to know about Melisandre is that Melisandre is from Asshai. It is at the far, far distant corner of the world where absolutely no one goes because it is so far. To put it into perspective, traveling across Westeros is a pain in the ass. Essos is like 2 or 3 times the size of Westeros, long ways. And Asshai is at the very, very far eastern corner compared to all the other, like, free cities being on the western side of Essos. Yay, geography. So basically my point is that no one goes to Asshai. Asshai is very difficult to get to. It is so far and it's so like isolated that weird stuff happens there. All sorts of like dark sorcerer shit. There's oily black rocks. There's a lot of like weird scary nonsense that we don't understand because it's mysterious and so remote. But that's where Melisandre is from. And one of the big practices there of all the magic users is shadow binding. And Melisandre is a shadowbinder herself. So shadowbinding is basically just a branch of magic, because there are, several different branches in the world of Ice and Fire. And it involves, the creation of shadows and, magic-y things to have them, do your bidding. The 2 shadow binders that we know of in the series are Melisandre and Quaithe. If you only watch the show, she shows up in season 2 for 2 seconds. She's wearing that weird like mask in Karth, and she whispers some riddly things at Daenerys. She shows up more in the books, but whatever. So, Melisandre, Shadowbinder. So, basically, seemingly what it is she goes to Stannis and has him, they do the do, if you will. And then afterwards, she's able to use his essence, life force, from doing the do to create this like magical assassin shadow thing. She then births it, and it is able to like follow the will of Stannis. So the thing you have to understand is that yes, she is birthing it, yes, she's creating it, but the thing is basically like acting out Stannis's will. So when Stannis like wants Renly out of the way, it's really like kind of Stannis killing him through the shadow thing. Another thing that's interesting, though, is that isn't the only time that it happens in the books. So in Clash of Kings, the second book, where, we have the shadow babies and everything, it actually happens twice, and the show kind of combines both of them into one thing. So in the book, because remember, we see things from different POVs. So if it's like a Catelyn POV chapter, we're only going to see things from her point of view. If it's a Davos one, his point of view, Melisandre, whatever. So the first time that we see like the shadow baby assassin thing is actually from a Catelyn point of view, and it's when Catelyn witnesses Renly being murdered. I shouldn't have to say spoiler for that, right? Right? I don't know. Spoiler. So Catelyn witnesses, Renly be killed by this weird shadow thing that has like Stannis' face on it. It looks like Stannis' shadow. Brienne is also there. They're freaked out, and they have to, skedaddle and run away because now everyone thinks that they have killed Renly. And then the second time that it's used is later. So now after Renly's dead, all of his banners join Stannis, and then Stannis marches on Storm's End, which is the seat of House Baratheon. But when they get to Storm's End, the people there, they don't want to let him in because they're still loyal to Renly. And so the Castellan, he's the guy who's like, I have been left in charge of this castle. He is a guy named Courtney Penrose. I don't know if this is like a fantasy thing where it's supposed to be Courtney because Courtney can be like a boy's name or whatever, but George is just spelling it weird, or it's really Courtney. I don't know. I'm gonna say Courtney. So Courtney Penrose basically doesn't want to let Stannis in. He's like, no, I'm still loyal to Renly. Renly left me in charge, and you can go get fucked. And Stannis is like, okay, cool, we'll deal with you a different way. Because you have to remember that Stannis does not want to do like a long siege at Storm's End. During Robert's rebellion, Stannis himself was on the other end of this, where he had to hold the castle against the Targaryen's forces, namely it was Mace Tyrell and like the Tarleys, who were just berating the castle. They were stuck inside, starving for like a year, and that's how Davos first gets introduced to Stannis, because Davos, a smuggler, smuggled in like a bunch of onions and food and stuff so that they didn't die while they were waiting for Robert to win the war. Anyway, back to the present. So Stannis doesn't want a long siege, so they decide, okay, we're going to use another shadow baby thing to deal with Courtney Penrose. But he doesn't tell Davos that, so he just goes to Davos and says, hey, I need you to use your smuggling skills. I need you to sail Melisandre like around the cove and into this like cave thing that is attached to, I'm assuming like I don't remember, I think it's like the sewer system or something for Storm's End, and you're going to help her get in there, and then she's going to do some stuff, and you're going to be chill, and you're going to like help her get out afterwards. And Davos, because he's just such a stand-up guy, is like, okay, cool, I'll do it. And so he smuggles her in, and it's there that we actually witness the birth of one of these shadow assassin baby things. It like goes out, flies off into the night or whatever. Davos is thoroughly freaked out, and then we find out the next day that I think Courtney Penrose has like jumped, I think from the cliff or something. He's dead. He's dead is basically the point, and they have taken Storm's End without a fight. Now, last thing that I think is super interesting about this whole like shadow baby thing is it causes issues for the person who is helping to make them. So Stannis, every time he makes one of these, and seemingly he's made two, it is literally like draining the life force out of him. So each time that he makes one, like Davos looks at him and he looks like gaunt. He looks like he's aged. He looks messed up. And so by the third book, after they've lost like the Battle of the Blackwater and stuff, Melisandre is talking to Davos and was like, hey, I can't even try to make a third one because it'll literally kill him. Because I think Davos was like, hey, well, why don't you just make another one? It'll fix all your problems like last time. And she tells him like, no, it's not going to work. But then she's like, hey, but I could get some help from another man if you want to do that. And Davos is like, I might, thank you. You seem lovely, but I'm cool. So that's Shadowbabies. Okay, goodbye.